Can you imagine a story so raw, so electrifying that it grabs your heart and shakes your very understanding of what it means to be human? Flawed and yet chosen by God, Jacob's life is exactly that, a breathtaking, soul-stirring journey that echoes across centuries, pulling us into a world where cunning but often dances in the shadows of integrity, where deception and redemption weave a tapestry of divine mystery. What does it mean to be handpicked by God, yet so undeniably imperfect? Jacob's tale isn't just a dusty page from ancient scripture. It's a living, breathing confrontation with the messy, uncomfortable truths of our own nature and the unfathomable plans of a God who sees beyond our failures. How can someone as scheming as human as Jacob, or even us, be used to fulfill a purpose so grand it shapes nations? Hold on tight because this narrative will flip your notions of justice and mercy upside down, plunging you into the astonishing origins of a people destined to change the world forever. Picture a couple, Isaac and Rebekah, their hearts heavy with a longing so deep it aches in their bones. They're yearning for a child in a time when barrenness wasn't just a private sorrow, it was a curse, public badge of shame that whispered failure in every glance from their neighbors. For 20 agonizing years, Rebekah carried this burden, her womb silent, her dreams haunted by the divine promise given to Abraham, their forefather, a promise of descendants as numerous as the stars. Can you feel the weight of their despair? The quiet nights filled with whispered prayers, the tears staining their faces as they clung to hope. Isaac, a man of unyielding faith, turned to the Lord, pouring out his heart for his beloved wife. And God, oh, how he heard Rebekah, became pregnant. A miracle that must have erupted in shouts of joy, tears of gratitude, and embraces that spoke of a love tested by time. But this answered prayer, it came with a twist, a complication that would set the stage for a story no one could have predicted. As Rebekah's belly swelled, so did her confusion and pain. Genesis 25:22-23 captures her cry. The babies jostled each other within her, and she said, "Why is this happening to me?" Can you imagine her fear? Her heart pounding as she felt her body become a battleground for two forces she couldn't control. The twins inside her weren't just restless, they were at war, their tiny limbs clashing in a struggle that echoed the future. Desperate, Rebekah ran to the Lord seeking answers, and his response was a thunderbolt from heaven. Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples from within you will be separated. One people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Two nations. A prophecy that turned the natural order on its head, declaring that the younger would rise above the elder. How could a mother carry such a staggering revelation knowing her sons were destined to birth rival peoples from the womb? God was crafting a drama that would defy every human expectation, setting the stage for a conflict that would ripple through generations, shaping history itself. Doesn't it make you wonder what plans God is weaving in the chaos of our own lives? The day of birth arrived a moment so dramatic, it's etched in eternity. Genesis 25:24-26 paints a vivid picture. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twin boys in her womb. The first to come out was red, and his whole body was like a hairy garment, so they named him Esau. After this, his brother came out with his hand grasping Esau's heel, so he was named Jacob. Isaac was 60 years old when Rebekah gave birth to them. Oh, the scene. Esau bursting into the world like a force of nature, red and hairy, a rugged firstborn, destined for the wild, his cries filling the air with raw energy. And Jacob right behind, clutching his brother's heel, as if even in birth he was staking his claim, refusing to be second. That grasp, was it a playful tug or a prophetic sign of the cunning, the relentless ambition that would define him? Isaac, now 60, a father at last, must have gazed at these boys with awe, their differences stark from the moment they drew breath. Can you picture him holding them, wondering what paths these tiny lives would carve? As Esau and Jacob grew, their differences deepened, like two rivers forging separate courses through a rugged landscape. Genesis 25:27-28 tells us, the boys grew up and Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the open country, while Jacob was content to stay at home among the tents. Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau, but Rebekah loved Jacob. Esau was the embodiment of raw, untamed masculinity, a hunter roaming the vast fields, his bow slung over his shoulder, his laughter echoing across the plains. Isaac's eyes must have sparkled with pride every time Esau returned the scent of roasted game filling their tent, a father's heart swelling for his firstborn. But Jacob, he was quiet, thoughtful, lingering among the tents, his hands busy with domestic tasks, his mind always turning. Rebekah's heart was tethered to him, her love fierce and unwavering. How could parents let such favoritism take root, splitting their family down the middle? Isaac's preference for Esau and Rebekah's devotion to Jacob planted seeds of discord that would soon sprout into a bitter harvest. Doesn't it make you ache thinking how favoritism can fracture even the closest bonds? Haven't we all felt the sting of being less favored or the guilt of choosing favorites ourselves? Then came a moment deceptively small that changed everything. A moment that would echo through their lives like a stone dropped in still water. Genesis 25:29-34 recounts. Once when Jacob was cooking some stew, Esau came in from the open country, famished. He said to Jacob, "Quick, let me have some of that red stew, I'm famished." That is why he was also called Edom. Jacob replied, "First sell me your birthright. Look, I am about to die." Esau said, "What good is the birthright to me?" But Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore an oath to him, selling his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau some bread and lentil stew. He ate and drank and then got up and left. So Esau despised his birthright. Can you believe it? A bowl of steaming, fragrant stew for a birthright? Esau, his stomach roaring, his body weary from the hunt, threw away a sacred privilege, the role of firstborn, the heir to spiritual blessings and leadership of their family, for a fleeting meal. His dramatic cry, "I am about to die," reveals a man ruled by impulse, chasing the instant relief of hunger over the eternal weight of his legacy. But Jacob, oh, Jacob was sharp as a blade, his eyes glinting with opportunity. He saw Esau's weakness and pounced his mind, calculating the value of what his brother so carelessly discarded. Was it wrong, this cunning move? Perhaps, but it showed a fierce, almost desperate hunger to claim what he believed was his divine destiny. Can't you just smell the stew? See the tension crackling between them? This exchange wasn't just about a meal. It was a mirror held up to two brothers' souls. Esau's recklessness, his utter disregard for the divine promises tied to his birthright, was nothing short of shocking. How could he value a bowl of lentils over the covenant God made with Abraham, a legacy of land descendants and blessing? Jacob, though, understood the birthright's worth, not just in wealth, but in its spiritual significance, the chance to lead, to carry forward God's plan. The biblical text doesn't slap a moral label on Jacob's actions, but the consequences of this moment would ripple through their lives, shaping their destinies and those of their descendants. The birthright wasn't just property, it was a sacred trust, a mantle of responsibility to guide the family in God's covenant. Esau's choice to despise it revealed a heart blind to eternity, while Jacob's scheming showed a relentless pursuit of divine favor, even if his methods raise eyebrows. Doesn't this make you stop and think? What do we trade away in moments of weakness, chasing fleeting comforts over lasting purpose? Haven't we all been tempted to sacrifice the eternal for the immediate years past? And the story took a heart-stopping turn, plunging us into a scene thick with urgency and deception. Genesis 27:1-4 sets the stage. When Isaac was old and almost blind, he called for his older son Esau and said, "My son." "Yes, father," he answered. Isaac said, "I am old and do not know the day of my death. Now take your weapons, your bow and your quiver, and go out to the field to hunt game for me. Prepare for me the delicious food I love, and bring it to me to eat so that I may bless you before I die." Isaac, now frail, his eyes clouded by age, felt the shadow of death creeping closer. His heart was set on blessing Esau, his rugged firstborn, with a prophetic declaration that would shape their family's future. Can you hear the tremor in his voice? The weight of a father's final act pressing down on him. This blessing wasn't just words, it was a sacred binding promise, a divine endowment of prosperity, leadership, and spiritual authority. But why Esau after he so carelessly sold his birthright? Did Isaac not know of the deal, or was he clinging to tradition? His love for his hunter son blinding him to God's prophecy. Can't you feel the tension building like a storm gathering on the horizon? Enter Rebekah, the mastermind, her heart pounding with resolve. Genesis 27:5-10 reveals her daring plan. Now Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. So when Esau went to the field to hunt for game, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, I heard your father say to your brother Esau, bring me game and prepare me the delicious food to eat, so that I may bless you in the presence of the Lord before I die. Now my son, listen to me as I command you. Go to the flock and bring me 2 choice young goats, so that I can prepare some delicious food for your father, the kind he loves. Then take it to your father to eat, so he may bless you before he dies. Oh, Rebekah, her eavesdropping sparked a scheme so bold it could unravel everything. Was she driven by God's prophecy that the younger would rule by her fierce protective love for Jacob, or by a belief that he was better suited to lead? Maybe it was all three, but her plan was a high-stakes gamble, thrusting Jacob into a dangerous masquerade. How could a mother orchestrate such a deception, yet believe she was aligning with God's will? Doesn't it make you question the line between faith and manipulation? The plan demanded an elaborate disguise, and Jacob's nerves were fraying. Genesis 27:11-17 captures his fear. But Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, but my brother Esau is a hairy man, and I am a smooth man. What if my father touches me? I would appear to be tricking him and bring down a curse on myself rather than a blessing. His mother said to him, my son, let the curse fall on me. Just do what I say. Go and get them for me. So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and she prepared the delicious food, the kind his father loved. Then Rebekah took the best clothes of Esau, her older son, which she had at home, and put them on her younger son Jacob. She also covered his hands and the smooth part of his neck with the goat skins. Then she handed to her son Jacob the delicious food and the bread she had made. They weren't just a father's wish, they were a divine thunderbolt, a decree painting a future of overflowing prosperity, unchallenged power, and a spiritual legacy that would echo through the ages. The imagery of dew-kissed fields, golden grain swaying in the breeze, and the sweet tang of new wine is so vivid it takes your breath away. What must it have felt like for Jacob to slip into his brother's identity, to wear his scent, to step into his skin? Can't you almost taste the fear and adrenaline? The moment of truth arrived, a scene so thick with tension it could choke you. Genesis 27:18-29 narrates Jacob's encounter with Isaac. Jacob went to his father and said, my father. Yes, who are you, my son? Isaac asked. Jacob said to his father, I am Esau, your firstborn. I have done as you told me. Please sit up and eat some of my game so that you may bless you before he dies. Oh, the suspense. Jacob's lies piled up, each one bolder, more brazen, even daring to invoke God's name to sell his story. The Lord your God gave me success. Isaac, his sight gone, but his instincts razor sharp, grew suspicious. Can you hear the doubt in his voice as he questioned the speed of the hunt? Jacob's quick thinking was a cunning touch, but Isaac wasn't fully convinced. He demanded to feel his son, to touch the truth. His hands trembling as they reached out, Genesis 27:22-23, continues, Jacob went close to his father Isaac, who touched him and said, the voice is the voice of Jacob, but the hands are the hands of Esau. He did not recognize him, for his hands were hairy like those of his brother Esau, so he blessed him. Isaac's heart must have been in turmoil. His ears screamed Jacob, but his hands felt the coarse, hairy texture of Esau. The goatskins worked their deceptive magic, and in that fleeting, fateful moment, touch triumphed over sound. Isaac, trusting his fingers over his doubts, proceeded with the blessing, unaware he was sealing Jacob's fate as the heir of God's covenant. Can you feel the weight of that moment, the irreversible shift in their family's destiny? Jacob, trembling beneath the disguise, his heart pounding in his chest, had crossed a line from which there was no turning back. How could one lie, one act of deception, carry such monumental consequences? The blessing itself, recorded in Genesis 27:27-29, was a torrent of divine promise, rich with imagery that stirs the soul. He smelled the smell of his clothes and blessed him, saying, ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed. May God give you of heaven's dew and of earth's richness, an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. Cursed be those who curse you, and blessed be those who bless you. Oh, what words! Prosperity, dominion, spiritual authority, all poured out on Jacob, the younger son, in fulfillment of the prophecy spoken before his birth. The irony is staggering. The blessing echoed God's promise that the older would serve the younger, yet it was secured through a web of lies. Can you imagine Isaac's voice quivering with emotion as he spoke these words, believing he was blessing Esau, and Jacob standing there soaking in the words meant for his brother? Did he feel triumph, guilt, or a tangled mix of both? But the story doesn't end there. Oh no! The fallout was coming, and it was heart-wrenching. Genesis 27:30-35 describes the devastating moment of truth. After Isaac finished blessing him and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some delicious food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, sit up and eat some of my game so that you may bless me." His father Isaac asked him, "Who are you?" "I am Esau, your firstborn," he answered. Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." Can you picture the scene? Esau sweaty from the hunt, his heart full of anticipation, only to be met with his father's trembling horror. Isaac's violent shaking, his voice breaking, as he realized the deception must have pierced the air like a thunderclap. And indeed he will be blessed. Those words sealed the blessing's permanence, a prophetic act that could not be undone. How could a father bear such a betrayal, knowing he'd been tricked by his own son? Esau's reaction was pure anguish, a cry that tears at the heart. Genesis 27:36-38 captures his pain. Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him Lord for you, and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing? My father blessed me too. My father." Then Esau wept aloud. Oh, Esau, his loud, bitter cry, his desperate plea for even a scrap of blessing, reveals a man shattered by loss. The name Jacob, meaning supplanter, seemed to mock him now, a cruel reminder of his brother's cunning. Only in this moment did Esau fully grasp the birthright's value, the blessing's weight. Can you feel his heartbreak? His sense of being robbed not once but twice. Haven't we all known moments when we realized too late what we'd lost? Isaac, his heart heavy, offered Esau a secondary blessing recorded in Genesis 27:39-40. His father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck." What a stark contrast to Jacob's lavish blessing. Esau's future was one of struggle, of living by the sword, yet there was a glimmer of hope, a promise of eventual freedom from his brother's rule. But for now, Esau's heart burned with rage. Genesis 27:41 tells us Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near. Then I will kill my brother Jacob." Murder in his heart. Can you imagine the fury, the betrayal, fueling Esau's vow? The family was fracturing and Jacob's life was now in danger. Rebekah, ever vigilant, acted swiftly. Genesis 27:42-45 recounts her plan. When Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Esau is planning to kill you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Oh, Rebekah's cunning never faltered. She protected Jacob from Esau's wrath, ensuring the survival of the promised lineage. But her words carried a mother's fear, losing both sons, one to murder, the other to vengeance. Can you feel her desperation? Her heart torn between her boys. How does a mother choose between love and survival? Jacob's departure, narrated in Genesis 28:1-5, marked a new chapter, one of exile and transformation. Isaac called for Jacob and blessed him. Then he commanded him, "Do not marry a Canaanite woman. Go at once to Paddan Aram, to the house of your mother's father Bethuel. Take a wife for yourself there from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother." May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and increase your numbers until you become community of peoples. May he give you and your descendants the blessing given to Abraham so that you may take possession of the land where you now reside as a foreigner, the land God gave to Abraham. Isaac, despite the deception, embraced God's will, blessing Jacob knowingly, this time his voice filled with hope for a future nation. Jacob left a fugitive, fleeing a brother's wrath, his heart heavy with guilt and fear. Can you imagine the loneliness, the uncertainty of leaving everything behind? Yet this journey was more than an escape. It was the beginning of a spiritual metamorphosis that would shape Jacob into Israel, the father of a nation. Doesn't his story remind us that God can use even our darkest moments, our greatest failures to fulfill his greater purposes? What lies ahead for Jacob, and how will his cunning heart be transformed? One thing's certain, this saga is a wildfire burning with lessons that sear the soul and linger long after the final word. Oh, the moment Isaac's trembling hands rested on Jacob, cloaked in his brother's rugged clothes, the air must have hummed with the weight of destiny itself. Can you feel the electricity in that tent? The sacred tension as Genesis 27:27 to 29 pours out a blessing so powerful it could reshape the stars. He smelled the smell of his clothes and blessed him, saying, "Ah, the smell of my son is like the smell of a field that the Lord has blessed." May God give you of heaven's dew and of earth's richness an abundance of grain and new wine. May nations serve you and peoples bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may the sons of your mother bow down to you. Cursed be those who curse you, and blessed be those who bless you. Oh, those words. They weren't just a father's wish. They were a divine thunderbolt, a decree painting a future of overflowing prosperity, unchallenged power, and a spiritual legacy that would echo through the ages. The imagery of dew-kissed fields, golden grains swaying in the breeze, and the sweet tang of new wine is so vivid it takes your breath away. But oh, the irony stings. Jacob the younger declared Lord over his brothers, fulfilling that ancient prophecy whispered to Rebekah before the twins even drew breath. The younger would rule. How could a moment so sacred, so drenched in divine purpose, be born from a web of deception? Yet there it was, sealed in the dim light of a blind father's tent, forever altering the path of a family, a nation, a world. Can you imagine Jacob's heart pounding, his breath catching as he stood there soaking in words meant for Esau? But oh, the joy of that stolen blessing was a fleeting spark snuffed out by a heartbreak so raw it could shatter stone. Genesis 27:30-35 unfolds with an intensity that grips your soul. After Isaac finished blessing him, and Jacob had scarcely left his father's presence, his brother Esau came in from hunting. He too prepared some delicious food and brought it to his father. Then he said to him, "My father, sit up and eat some of my game so that you may bless me." His father, Isaac, asked him, "Who are you?" "I am Esau, your firstborn," he answered. Isaac trembled violently and said, "Who was it then that hunted game and brought it to me? I ate it just before you came, and I blessed him, and indeed he will be blessed." Can you picture Isaac's horror? His frail body shook like a leaf in a storm. His voice cracked with disbelief as the truth crashed over him like a merciless wave. Someone had stolen Esau's blessing, snatched it right out of his grasp, and those final words, "and indeed he will be blessed," must have landed like a dagger in his heart. The blessing once spoken was etched in eternity, a prophetic vow that no mortal could unravel. Poor Isaac, his sight gone, his trust betrayed, caught in a cruel twist of fate. How could he bear the realization that his sacred act meant to honor his firstborn had been hijacked by trickery? Can't you feel the weight of his shock? The agony of a father deceived by his own flesh and blood. Esau's anguish is a wound so deep it's almost too much to witness. Genesis 27:36-38 lays bare his raw, shattering pain. Esau said, "Isn't he rightly named Jacob? This is the second time he has taken advantage of me. He took my birthright, and now he's taken my blessing." Then he asked, "Haven't you reserved any blessing for me?" Isaac answered Esau, "I have made him lord over you, and have made all his relatives his servants, and I have sustained him with grain and new wine. So what can I possibly do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you have only one blessing, Maka? My father, bless me too, my father." Then Esau wept aloud. Oh, Esau's cry. His voice, thick with betrayal, must have torn through the tent, a howl of despair that could break the hardest heart. Isn't he rightly named Jacob? The name supplanter was a bitter taunt, now a cruel reminder of his brother's cunning. First, the birthright traded away in a moment of hunger for a steaming bowl of stew, and now the blessing stolen by Jacob's sly disguise. Can you hear the desperation in his plea? Bless me too, my father. His tears, loud and bitter, spilled like a flood, revealing a man who only now grasped the full weight of what he'd lost. How could he have been so blind, so careless until the moment everything slipped through his fingers? Haven't we all known that gut-wrenching regret, realizing too late the value of what we've squandered? Isaac, his heart heavy with sorrow, his hands trembling from the shock, mustered what he could for his firstborn. Genesis 27:39-40 records. His secondary blessing, his father Isaac answered him, "Your dwelling will be away from the earth's richness, away from the dew of heaven above. You will live by the sword, and you will serve your brother. But when you grow restless, you will throw his yoke from off your neck." Oh, what a stark, sobering contrast to Jacob's lavish promise. Esau's future was a rugged path, far from the fertile lands and gentle dew promised to his brother. To live by the sword, what a brutal destiny forged in conflict, scraping for survival in a harsh world. Yet isn't there a flicker of hope in those words, that promise of liberation, of breaking free from Jacob's rule? When restlessness stirs in his soul, it's a faint light in the darkness. But for now, Esau's heart burned with the sting of injustice, his dreams of honor and leadership dashed. How could a father's blessing, meant to unite a family in love, tear it apart with such brutal force? Can't you feel the fracture, the pain splitting this family like a chasm? That pain ignited a fire in Esau, a dangerous blaze that threatened to consume everything. Genesis 27:41 reveals his chilling resolve. Esau held a grudge against Jacob because of the blessing his father had given him. He said to himself, "The days of mourning for my father are near, then I will kill my brother Jacob." Murder, the word alone sends a shiver down your spine, doesn't it? Esau's anger, raw and unyielding, transformed his brother into an enemy, his heart plotting a violent end. Can you imagine the darkness of those thoughts? The cold calculation of waiting for Isaac's death to cloak his vengeance. The depth of his rage reveals just how deeply Jacob's betrayal cut, turning love into hatred, kinship into enmity. What kind of wound festers until it dreams of blood? The family, once bound by shared meals and shared dreams, now teetered on the edge of tragedy, and the air was thick with the threat of violence. Rebekah, ever the vigilant mother, caught wind of Esau's deadly plan, and oh, her heart must have raced with terror. Genesis 27:42-45 captures her urgent, desperate response. When Rebekah was told what her older son Esau had said, she sent for her younger son Jacob and said to him, "Esau is planning to kill you. Now then, my son, do what I say. Flee at once to my brother Laban in Haran. Stay with him for a while until your brother's fury subsides. When your brother is no longer angry and forgets what you did to him, I'll send word for you to come back from there. Why should I lose both of you in one day?" Oh, Rebekah's cunning, her fierce love for Jacob shone like a beacon in that moment. Her words were a lifeline, a plan to save her son from a brother's wrath, but they carried a mother's deepest fear. Why should I lose both of you? She dreaded not only Jacob's death, but the consequences for Esau if he became a murderer, staining his soul with blood. Can you feel her anguish? Her heart torn between her two boys, each one a piece of her soul sending Jacob to her brother. Laban in distant Haran was a desperate act, a mother's sacrifice to preserve the promised lineage. But what must it have felt like to push her favorite son out into the unknown, unsure if she'd ever hold him again? Doesn't it make you ache thinking of the cost of protecting those we love? Jacob's departure, narrated in Genesis 28:1-5, was a moment heavy with emotion, a turning point that marked the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. Isaac called for Jacob and blessed him. Then he commanded him, "Do not marry a Canaanite woman. Go at once to Padan Aram, to the house of your mother's father Bethuel. Take a wife for yourself there from among the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. May God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and increase your numbers until you become a community of peoples. May he give you and your descendants the blessing given to Abraham, so that you may take possession of the land where you now reside as a foreigner, the land God gave to Abraham." Then Isaac sent Jacob on his way, and he went to Paddan Aram to Laban, son of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, who was the mother of Jacob and Esau. Oh, the grace in Isaac's heart. Despite the sting of deception, he embraced God's will, his voice steady as he blessed Jacob again, this time with full knowledge, his words brimming with hope for a future nation. His instructions: avoid Canaanite women, seek a wife from Laban's family, were a father's plea to preserve the sacred lineage, to keep the covenant pure. Can you see Jacob standing before his father, his heart a tangle of guilt and gratitude as he received this blessing? Under the shadow of Esau's threat, the journey to Paddan Aram wasn't just an escape from danger, it was the start of a transformation, a path that would forge Jacob into Israel, the father of 12 tribes. How could one man's choices, his flaws, carry such eternal weight as Jacob set out, leaving behind a fractured family and a brother consumed by rage? His heart must have been a storm of fear, hope, and uncertainty. Can you picture him, his steps heavy, his eyes scanning the horizon, knowing he was now a fugitive? This wasn't just a physical journey across deserts and hills. It was a spiritual odyssey, a crucible where God would reshape a deceiver into a patriarch. Genesis 28:10-11 paints a stark, lonely scene. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. When he reached a certain place, he stopped for the night because the sun had set. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. Oh, Jacob alone for the first time, far from the warmth of his mother's tents, with only a cold, hard stone for a pillow. The stars glittered above the silence pressed around him. How vulnerable, how exposed he must have felt, a man fleeing his brother's wrath with nothing but the clothes on his back. Can you imagine the weight of his thoughts, the memories of his deception, the fear of what lay ahead? Yet in that moment of utter solitude, God chose to break through with a vision so breathtaking it would change Jacob's life forever. Genesis 28:12-15 captures the dream that shook Jacob's soul to its core. He had a dream in which he saw a stairway resting on the earth, with its top reaching to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. There above it stood the Lord, and he said, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east, to the north, and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Oh, what a vision. A stairway stretching from earth to heaven, angels gliding between the realms, and God himself standing above, his voice resounding with promise. Can you feel the awe, the overwhelming reassurance in those words? God vowed land countless descendants and a legacy that would bless every nation, reaffirming the covenant given to Abraham and Isaac. I am with you. Those words must have been a lifeline, a beacon of hope for Jacob, alone and afraid under the vast night sky. How could he ever doubt God's presence after such a divine encounter? Doesn't it make you wonder what visions God might send to us in our darkest moments? Jacob's response, recorded in Genesis 28:16-22, is a moment of raw, transformative wonder. When Jacob awoke from his sleep, he thought, surely the Lord is in this place and I was not aware of it. He was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God. This is the gate of heaven. Early the next morning, Jacob took the stone he had placed under his head and set it up as a pillar and poured oil on top of it. He called that place Bethel, though the city used to be called Luz. Then Jacob made a vow, saying, if God will be with me and will watch over me on this journey I am taking, and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear, so that I return safely to my father's household, then the Lord will be my God, and this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth. Oh, Jacob's heart must have been racing. For the first time, he claimed God as his own, not just the God of his fathers, but his God, his refuge, his promise keeper, his fear, his awe, his vow. It's a sacred pivot, the birth of a personal faith that would carry him through trials. Bethel, house of God, became a monument to this encounter, that stone glistening with oil under the morning sun. Can you imagine the reverence, the trembling hands as he poured out that offering, sealing his promise to God? Doesn't it stir your soul thinking of the moments when God reveals himself to us? Jacob's journey pressed on, leading him to Haran, in a moment that would set his heart ablaze. Genesis 29, 1-12 narrates his arrival with vivid detail. Then Jacob continued his journey and came to the land of the eastern peoples. There he saw a well in the field, with 3 flocks of sheep lying near it, because the flocks drank from that well. A large stone covered the mouth of the well. When all the flocks were gathered there, the shepherds would roll the stone away from the well's mouth and water the sheep. Then they would return the stone to its place over the mouth of the well. Jacob asked the shepherds, "My brothers, where are you from?" "We are from Haran," they replied. He asked them, "Do you know Laban, Nahor's grandson?" "Yes, we know him," they answered. Then Jacob asked, "Is he well?" "Yes, he is," they said, "and here comes his daughter Rachel with the sheep." Oh, what a moment, a place of meeting, echoing his family's history. Abraham's servant found Rebekah at a well, and now Jacob stood at another. His questions, eager and hopeful, show a man desperate to find kin, to find home. And then Rachel. Can you see her approaching her sheep, trailing behind, her presence like a sunrise after a long night? "Look," Jacob said, "the sun is still high. It is not time for the flocks to be gathered. Water the sheep and take them back to graze." "We can't," they replied, "until all the flocks are gathered and the stone has been rolled away from the well's mouth. Then we will water the sheep." While he was still talking with them, Rachel came with her father's sheep, for she was a shepherdess. As soon as Jacob saw Rachel, daughter of Laban, his mother's brother, and Laban's sheep, he went over and rolled the stone away from the well's mouth and watered his uncle Laban's sheep. Then Jacob kissed Rachel and began to weep aloud. Oh, the rush of that moment! Jacob, with a surge of strength, single-handedly rolled that massive stone away, his muscles straining, his heart racing to impress this woman who captivated him. And when he saw her up close, her eyes bright, her presence warm, his heart must have leaped. That kiss, those tears. Can you feel the flood of emotion, the joy of finding family, and perhaps the spark of something deeper? He told Rachel he was Rebekah's son, and she ran to tell her father Laban, her feet flying with excitement. What a reunion, bursting with hope, connection, and the promise of a new chapter. Laban's welcome was a balm to Jacob's weary soul, as Genesis 29:13-14 describes. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he hurried to meet him. He embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his home. And there Jacob told him all these things. Then Laban said to him, "You are my own flesh and blood." Oh, the warmth of that embrace. After weeks of travel, of fear and solitude, Laban's words must have felt like a homecoming, a reminder that Jacob wasn't alone. But that warmth soon took a practical turn, as Genesis 29:15-20 reveals. Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are a relative of mine, should you work for me for nothing? Tell me what your wages should be." Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah had weak eyes, but Rachel had a lovely figure and was beautiful. Jacob was in love with Rachel and said, "I'll work for you 7 years in return for your younger daughter, Rachel." Laban said, "It's better that I give her to you than to some other man. Stay here with me." So Jacob served 7 years to get Rachel, but they seemed like only a few days to him because of his love for her. Can you believe the depth of Jacob's love? 7 years of grueling labor melted into moments because his heart was so full of Rachel. Her beauty, her grace, her laughter. They captivated him, while Leah, with her quiet demeanor and weak eyes, faded into the shadows. Laban's agreement was shrewd, but Jacob's devotion was a fire that nothing could quench. How could love transform such toil into joy? Doesn't it make you think of the sacrifices we make for those we cherish? This chapter of Jacob's life, from the stolen blessing to the threat of death, from a divine vision to the spark of love, is a tapestry woven with deception, redemption, and the relentless pursuit of God's plan. Every choice, every tear, every vow carries consequences. Yet through it all, God's purpose shines. What does Jacob's story awaken in your heart? How does it mirror your own journey through betrayal, faith, and the longing for love? His Odyssey reminds us that even our deepest flaws, our darkest moments, can be threads in a divine masterpiece crafted by a God who never lets go. Oh, the fire blazing in Jacob's heart as he locked eyes with Rachel under the scorching Haran sun, her presence igniting a love so fierce it could outshine the stars. Can you feel the heat of that moment? The way his pulse raced as he struck a deal with Laban, as Genesis 29 reveals a pact that was no mere transaction, but a sacred vow etched in sweat and devotion. Jacob, the cunning deceiver, who once outwitted his father and brother, now poured every ounce of his soul into 7 grueling years of labor. Each sunrise a step closer to claiming Rachel as his wife, 7 years. Can you imagine the depth of that love? A passion so consuming that it transformed backbreaking toil into a heartbeat of hope. But Laban, oh, that sly, calculating fox. His warm welcome, those hearty embraces, masked a mind always scheming, always angling for the upper hand. The irony cuts like a knife, doesn't it, Jacob? The master of deception bound himself to a man whose trickery would soon turn his world upside down, spinning a tale where love and betrayal danced a dangerous waltz. How could one man's story weave together such fierce devotion and such stinging deceit? The day Jacob had dreamed of for 7 long years finally dawned, charged with anticipation so thick it could choke you. Genesis 29:21-25 narrates the shattering betrayal that followed. Then Jacob said to Laban, "Give me my wife. My time is completed, and I want to lie with her." So Laban brought together all the people of the place and gave a feast. But when evening came, he took his daughter Leah and brought her to Jacob, and Jacob lay with her. Laban gave his servant Zilpah to his daughter as her attendant. When morning came, there was Leah. So Jacob said to Laban, "What is this you have done to me? I served you for Rachel, didn't I? Why have you deceived me?" Oh, the gut-wrenching shock that must have slammed into Jacob's chest. Can you picture the moment dawn's light creeping into the tent, revealing Leah's face where Rachel's should have been? His heart must have plummeted. His breath caught in his throat as the truth hit like a thunderbolt. The feast with its laughter and music, the darkness of the wedding night, cloaking Laban's cruel switch, all of it a meticulously crafted betrayal. Jacob's cry, "Why have you deceived me?" Oh, how it echoes the anguished plea of his brother Esau years before, when Jacob stole his blessing. The deceiver deceived. How could fate twist so cruelly, reflecting Jacob's own sins back at him in this moment of heartbreak? Can't you feel the sting, the bitter irony of his own cunning turned against him? Laban's response was slick, unapologetic, and maddeningly calm, only deepening the wound. Genesis 29:26-30 recounts Laban replied, "It is not our custom to give the younger daughter in marriage before the older one. Finish this daughter's bridal week. Then we will give you the younger one in return for another 7 years of work." And Jacob did so. He finished the week with Leah, and then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his servant Bilhah to his daughter, Rachel, as her attendant. Jacob lay with Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah. And he worked for Laban. Another 7 years. 7 more years. Can you believe the audacity, the sheer gall of Laban's demand? Yet Jacob, his heart tethered to Rachel like a ship to its anchor, agreed without hesitation. His love unshaken by the injustice. Oh, the strength of that devotion. But what a cost, married to 2 sisters. Leah and Rachel. Jacob's tent became a battlefield, a cauldron of rivalry and heartache. His love for Rachel, so vivid, so all-consuming, cast poor Leah into the shadows, her heart aching for a glance, a touch that never came. Doesn't it echo the favoritism of Jacob's own parents, Isaac and Rebekah, that tore his family apart? How could such a radiant love sow the seeds of such bitter division? Can't you hear the whispers of conflict brewing in that crowded household? The birth of Jacob's children, narrated in Genesis 29:31-35 and 30 found 124, unfold like a saga of longing, competition, and raw emotion. Leah gives birth to Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah. Rachel, unable to conceive, gives her servant Bilhah to Jacob, who bears Dan and Naphtali. Leah, seeing that she stopped having children, gives her servant Zilpah to Jacob, who bears Gad and Asher. Leah then conceives again and gives birth to Issachar and Zebulun. Finally, Rachel conceives and gives birth to Joseph. Oh, the tension that crackled in that household, thick as a desert storm. Each birth was a cry for Jacob's love, a desperate bid for favor in a rivalry that pitted sister against sister. Leah named her sons with hope and sorrow. Reuben, see a son, as if pleading for Jacob to notice her. Simeon, God has heard a prayer for his affection. Can you feel her heart breaking with each child, hoping this one would win his love? Rachel, barren and consumed by envy, her womb silent while Leah's flourished, offered her servant Bilhah to bear children in her place, a painful surrender to keep her place in Jacob's heart. But Leah countered with Zilpah, unwilling to be outdone. The names of their sons, Dan judgment. Naphtali, my struggle, carry the weight of their mother's battles. When Leah bore Issachar and Zebulun, her hope flickered anew only for Rachel's joy to erupt with Joseph's birth, her voice singing, God has taken away my disgrace. How could a family grow so large, so blessed, yet feel so fractured by jealousy and longing? Doesn't it make you ache, thinking of the cost of love unreturned? Through these tumultuous years in Haran, Jacob transformed, didn't he? No longer the cunning youth who fled Canaan with nothing but his wits, he became a patriarch. His life a vibrant tapestry woven with threads of deceit, backbreaking labor, and a love that burned like wildfire. The consequences of his past, deceiving his father, betraying his brother, followed him like a shadow, mirrored in Laban's cruel betrayal and the strife between his wives. Yet amid the chaos, the heartache, and the endless rivalry, God's promise from that starry night at Bethel began to take root, sprouting one child at a time. A great nation was forming, each son a brick in the foundation of Israel. How could Jacob, so flawed, so scarred by his own choices, be the vessel for such a divine, world-changing plan? Can't you see God's hand weaving beauty from the mess of human striving? The birth of Joseph, Rachel's long-awaited son, marked a turning point, stirring a deep longing in Jacob's heart for home. Genesis 30:25-28 captures his heartfelt plea. After Rachel gave birth to Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, "Send me on my way so I can go back to my own homeland. Give me my wives and children for whom I have served you, and I will be on my way. You know how much work I have done for you." But Laban said to him, "If I have found favor in your eyes, please stay. I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you." He added, "Name your wages and I will pay them." Oh, Jacob's soul must have ached for Canaan, for the rolling hills of his father Isaac's land. After 14 years of toil, his hands calloused, his heart full of his growing family, he yearned to reclaim his place, to stand once more on the soil of God's promise. But Laban, ever the schemer, saw Jacob as a fountain of blessing, his presence a magnet for prosperity. Can you hear the tension in their voices? Jacob's resolve clashing with Laban's greed like flint, striking steel. What would it take for Jacob to break free from this cunning master's grip? Jacob's ingenuity as a shepherd, described in Genesis 30:29-43, was nothing short of brilliant. A spark of his old cunning rekindled. He proposed an apparently losing deal, asking only for the speckled and spotted animals from Laban's flocks, animals rare and seemingly worthless. But oh, through a masterful blend of selective breeding and perhaps a touch of divine intervention, Jacob turned the tables, his herds growing fat and numerous while Laban's dwindled. Can you picture the fields dotted with speckled goats and spotted sheep, each one a testament to Jacob's resilience? Was it his sharp mind or God's guiding hand that multiplied his wealth? Either way, Jacob's tents overflowed with livestock, his wealth a bold declaration of his triumph over Laban's schemes. But success stirred envy, didn't it? Genesis 31:1-3 reveals the brewing storm. Jacob, however, heard that Laban's sons were saying, "Jacob has taken everything that belonged to our father and gained all this wealth at our father's expense." And Jacob noticed that Laban no longer treated him as before. Then the Lord said to Jacob, "Return to the land of your ancestors and to your own people, and I will be with you." Oh, the shift in the air. Laban's sons seethed with resentment, their whispers like venom, and Laban's once warm gaze turned cold as stone. But God's voice pierced the tension, a divine command ringing, clear, "Go home." How could Jacob ignore such a call? A promise of protection from the God who met him at Bethel. The escape was planned in secret, a daring act of courage and cunning, as Genesis 31:4-13 recounts. Jacob gathered Rachel and Leah in the fields away from prying ears and poured out his heart, sharing a dream where God urged him to leave. Oh, the vulnerability in that moment, laying bare Laban's injustices. The wages changed 10 times the years of exploitation. Can you imagine the fire in his eyes, the urgency in his voice as he rallied his wives to his side, Rachel and Leah? For once united stood by him, their voices sharp with frustration at their father's greed, their loyalty a rare glimpse of harmony in a fractured family. Genesis 31:17-21 paints the heart-pounding getaway. During the sheep shearing, Jacob put his children and his wives on camels, and he drove all his livestock ahead of him, along with all the goods he had accumulated in Padanaram, to go back to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. When Laban had gone to shear his sheep, Rachel stole her father's household gods. Moreover, Jacob deceived Laban the Aramean by not telling him he was fleeing. He fled with all he had, crossed the Euphrates River, and headed for the hill country of Gilead. Can you see the caravan camels swaying under the weight of children tents and treasures slipping away under the cover of night? Jacob the deceiver struck again, but this time to protect his family, to claim the future God promised. And Rachel's theft of the household gods. What was she thinking? A desperate tie to her past, a talisman for protection, or a defiant jab at her father's pride? How could such a small act carry such explosive risk? Doesn't it make you wonder what we cling to when we leave the familiar behind? Laban's pursuit was relentless as storm, chasing a fleeing spark, as Genesis 31:22-25 narrates. On the third day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. Taking his relatives with him, Laban pursued Jacob for 7 days and caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. Then God came to Laban the Aramean in a dream at night and said to him, "Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad." Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country of Gilead when Laban overtook him, and Laban and his relatives camped there too. 7 days of pursuit. Can you imagine Laban's fury, his men pounding across the wilderness, driven by the sting of betrayal, yet God intervened. His voice, a divine shield around Jacob, warning Laban in a dream to hold his tongue. How could Laban dare defy such a command, a direct word from the God of Abraham? The stage was set for a confrontation that would lay bare years of resentment, a showdown in the rugged hills of Gilead. The clash on Mount Gilead, described in Genesis 31:26-42, crackles with raw emotion, every word a spark in a powder keg. Laban accuses Jacob of secretly fleeing and stealing his household gods. Unaware of Rachel's theft, Jacob allows Laban to search the entire camp. Rachel, sitting on the god, deceives her father by claiming she cannot get up because of her menstrual period, preventing him from searching where she was sitting. Jacob then expresses his frustration over Laban's treatment over the years. "For 20 years I was with you. Your sheep and goats did not miscarry, nor did I eat rams from your flocks. I did not bring you animals torn by wild beasts. I bore the loss myself, and you demanded payment from me for whatever was stolen by day or night. The heat consumed me in the daytime, and the cold at night, and sleep fled from my eyes. It was like this for 20 years I was in your household. I worked for you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flocks, and you changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham and the fear of Isaac, had not been with me, you would surely have sent me away empty-handed. But God has seen my hardship and the toil of my hands, and last night he rebuked you." O Jacob's speech. Can you hear the passion, the righteous anger boiling over after 2 decades of exploitation? He laid bare Laban's greed, sleepless nights under biting cold, scorching days that burned his skin. Wages shifted 10 times to cheat him. Rachel's quick thinking, her clever deceptions saved them, hiding the stolen gods with a lie as sharp as her father's schemes. How could God protect them through such tangled webs of deceit? Doesn't it mirror Jacob's own cunning, now turned to shield his family? The resolution came with a solemn covenant. As Genesis 31:43-55 describes, they set up a heap of stones as a witness to their agreement not to harm each other. Laban calls the heap Jagar Sahadutha in Aramaic, while Jacob calls it Gilead in Hebrew, both meaning heap of witness. Early the next morning, Laban kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then he left and returned home. A heap of stones, rough and unyielding, stood as a testament to their truce. Oh, the weight of that moment, Laban's farewell. His lips brushing the foreheads of his daughters and grandchildren carried a bittersweet tenderness, a flicker of love beneath his scheming heart. Can you see the tears glinting in their eyes? The ache of parting after years of strife. Jacob left Haran, not as the fugitive who arrived, but as a patriarch, his family swelling his herds, vast, a living testament to God's faithfulness. How could a man so shaped by deceit become the cornerstone of a nation? As Jacob journeyed onward, Genesis 32:1-2, offers a divine encounter that must have stopped his heart. Jacob also went on his way, and the angels of God met him. When Jacob saw them, he said, This is the camp of God. So he named that place Mahanaim Angels. Can you imagine the awe, the breath catching in his throat as he beheld God's messengers, their presence? A radiant echo of the stairway at Bethel. This was no mere coincidence. God was preparing him, strengthening him for the trial ahead. And oh, what a trial loomed. Genesis 32, 321 narrates Jacob's rising fear. Jacob sends messengers ahead to inform Esau of his arrival. When the messengers return with the news that Esau is coming to meet him with 400 men, Jacob is terrified. In his fear, Jacob divides his group into two camps, thinking, if Esau comes and attacks one camp, the other camp may escape. Then he prays fervently to God. O God of my father Abraham, God of my father Isaac, Lord, you who said to me, go back to your country and your relatives, and I will make you prosper. I am unworthy of all the kindness and faithfulness you have shown your servant. I had only my staff when I crossed this Jordan, but now I have become two camps. Save me. I pray from the hand of my brother Esau, for I am afraid he will come and attack me, and also the mothers with their children. But you have said, I will surely make you prosper and will make your descendants like the sand of the sea, which cannot be counted. O Jacob's terror. 400 men, could Esau still nurse that murderous grudge, his heart hardened by years of betrayal? His prayer, raw and trembling, laid bare his unworthiness. His fear for his wives and children, yet clung fiercely to God's promises. The gifts sent to Esau, herds of goats, sheep, camels, a lavish procession, were a desperate plea for the peace, a hope to soften his brother's heart. How could Jacob face the brother he wronged, unsure if forgiveness or vengeance awaited? Can't you feel his dread, the weight of his past pressing down? Jacob's story, a whirlwind of love, betrayal, and divine protection, pulls us into a world where every choice ripples like a stone in a still pond. From the fiery passion for Rachel to the sting of Laban's deceit, from the rivalry of sisters to the courage of a midnight escape. His journey is a mirror to our own struggles. What does his saga stir in your heart? How does it reflect your battles with faith, family, and the longing for redemption? Through every flaw, every misstep, God's plan unfolds a promise that even our brokenness can be woven into a masterpiece. Oh, what a hope to cling to that. The God who guided Jacob guides us still. Oh, the gnawing ache of hunger that gripped Canaan, a famine so relentless it seemed the very earth had turned against Jacob's family. Can you feel the weight of despair in Genesis 42, 1-2, as Jacob, his eyes weary from years of grief, snapped at his sons? Why do you just keep looking at each other? His voice, sharp with urgency, cut through the stifling air of their tent, his heart pounding with the fear of starvation. I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. He declared, his words a spark of hope in a land choked by dust. Go down there and buy some for us, so that we may live and not die. Oh, the fire in that command. Jacob, now Israel, a patriarch scarred by loss. Rachel's death, Joseph's supposed demise, Isaac's passing, clung to survival. His love for his family, a flame that refused to flicker out. Can you picture him, his weathered hands trembling as he sent 10 of his sons to a foreign land, unaware that this journey would unravel the deepest wound of his heart? How could a simple trip for grain hold the power to resurrect a past he'd buried in tears? The brothers, their faces etched with the strain of famine, set out for Egypt, leaving Jacob with Benjamin, his youngest, the last son of his beloved Rachel. Oh, how fiercely he guarded Benjamin, his heart unable to bear another loss. Genesis 42, 3-4 tells us, so Joseph's 10 brothers went down to buy grain from Egypt, but Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with the others, because he was afraid that harm might come to him. Can you feel the knot in Jacob's chest, the dread that gripped him as he watched his sons disappear over the horizon? Benjamin was his tether to Rachel, a living echo of her laughter, her eyes. How could he risk losing him too? The road to Egypt was fraught with danger. Bandits, hunger, the unknown, but Jacob had no choice. The specter of starvation loomed larger than his fears, pushing him to act. Doesn't it break your heart imagining him alone in his tent, whispering prayers for his son's safety, haunted by the memory of Joseph's blood-soaked coat? In Egypt, the brothers stepped into a world of abundance that must have dazzled their famine-weary eyes. Genesis 42, 5-6 paints the scene. So Israel's sons were among those who went to buy grain, for there was famine in Canaan also. Now Joseph was the governor of the land, the person who sold grain to all its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived, they bowed down to him with their faces to the ground. Oh, the irony sharp as a blade. Joseph, the dreamer they sold into slavery, now stood before them as Egypt's mighty governor, his face hidden behind power and years of separation. Can you imagine the moment the brothers' heads bowed low, unaware they were fulfilling the very dreams they despised, sheaves and stars bending to Joseph's glory? His heart must have raced a storm of emotions. Anger, longing, disbelief surging as he recognized the faces of his betrayers. How could he stand there, cloaked in authority without his voice breaking, his hands trembling? Yet Joseph, and tempered by years of hardship, kept his identity veiled, his eyes searching their faces for remorse for change. The encounter narrated in Genesis 42, 7-9, crackles with tension. As soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" he demanded. "From the land of Canaan," they replied, "to buy food." Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Then he remembered his dreams about them and said to them, "You are spies, you have come to see where our land is unprotected." Spies, or the accusation flung like a stone, must have stunned the brothers, their knees trembling under the governor's piercing gaze. Joseph's harsh tone masked a heart wrestling with pain and purpose. Did they regret their betrayal, or were they still the jealous brothers who sold him for silver? Can you feel the weight of his memories, the cistern's darkness, the chains that bound him, flashing through his mind as he tested their hearts? How could he balance justice with the longing to embrace them, to reveal the brother they thought lost forever? The brothers, flustered and desperate, poured out their defense. As Genesis 42, 10-13 recounts, "No, my lord," they answered, "your servants have come to buy food. We are all the sons of one man. Your servants are honest men, not spies." "No," he said to them, "you have come to see where our land is unprotected." But they replied, "Your servants were 12 brothers, the sons of one man who lives in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no more." Oh, the pang in Joseph's heart at those words, "one is no more." Did they speak of him so casually, as if his life meant nothing? Their mention of Benjamin, safe with Jacob, must have stirred a flood of memories. Rachel's voice, their childhood laughter. Can you imagine Joseph's struggle, his face stern, his heart aching to ask about his father, his little brother? He pressed them further, demanding proof, as Genesis 42, 15-17 reveals, "By this you will be tested, as Pharaoh lives. You will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of your number to get your brother. The rest of you will be kept in prison so that your words may be tested to see if you are telling the truth." The brothers, their voices rising in panic, were locked away, their fate hanging on a test they couldn't understand. How could they know the governor's heart beat with their shared blood? In the darkness of their cell, the brothers' guilt surfaced raw and searing, as Genesis 42, 21-22 records. They said to one another, "Surely we are being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. That's why this distress has come on us." Reuben replied, "Didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen. Now we must give an accounting for his blood." Oh, their anguish, a wound reopened after years of silence. Can you hear the torment in their voices, the memory of Joseph's cries echoing from that cistern, his pleas ignored as they sold him to strangers? Reuben's words, heavy with regret, cut deep. Hadn't he tried to save Joseph only to be overruled? Joseph, listening unseen, was overcome, as Genesis 42, 23-24 tells us. They did not realize that Joseph could understand them since he was using an interpreter. He turned away from them and began to weep, but then came back and spoke to them again. Tears. Can you see Joseph, his back turned, his shoulders shaking as he wept for the pain they'd caused, for the years stolen from him? Yet he steeled himself, choosing Simeon to remain bound, sending the others back with a command to bring Benjamin. How could he bear to let them go, knowing the truth might break his father's heart? The brothers returned to Canaan, their sacks heavy with grain, but their hearts heavier still, as Genesis 42, 25-28 reveals a startling discovery. Joseph had given orders to fill their bags with grain, to put each man's silver back in his sack, and to give them provisions for their journey. After this was done for them, they loaded their grain on their donkeys and left. At the place where they stopped for the night, one of them opened his sack to get feed for his donkey, and he saw his silver in the mouth of his sack. "My silver has been returned," he said to his brothers. "Here it is in my sack." Their hearts sank and they turned to each other trembling and said, "What is this that God has done to us?" Oh, the terror that gripped them. The silver glinting in the firelight was no blessing, but a curse, a trap that could mark them as thieves. Can you feel their panic, their voices quaking as they wondered what divine judgment was unfolding? How could they face their father, already frail with grief? With such ominous news, Genesis 42:29-35 captures their return to Jacob, a moment thick with dread. When they came to their father Jacob in the land of Canaan, they told him all that had happened to them. They said, "The man who is Lord over the land spoke harshly to us and treated us as though we were spying on the land. But we said to him, 'We are honest men. We are not spies. We were 12 brothers, sons of one father, is no more, and the youngest is now with our father in Canaan.' Then the man, the Lord of the land, said to us, 'This is how I will know whether you are honest men. Leave one of your brothers here with me and take food for your starving households and go. But bring your youngest brother to me, so I will know that you are not spies, but honest men. Then I will give your brother back to you, and you can trade in the land.' As they were emptying their sacks, there in each man's sack was his pouch of silver. When they and their father saw the money, they were terrified. Oh, Jacob's horror, as he listened, his eyes wide with fear. The silver, the demand for Benjamin Simeon's imprisonment, it was too much. Genesis 42:36 records his despair. Their father Jacob said to them, "You have deprived me of my children. Joseph is no more, and Simeon is no more, and now you want to take Benjamin. Everything is against me." Can you hear the anguish in his cry, the weight of a father who believed he'd lost two sons and now faced losing a third? How could he let Benjamin go, the last piece of Rachel's legacy? The brothers, their voices pleading, tried to reassure him, but Jacob's heart was a fortress of grief, as Genesis 42:38 declares. But Jacob said, "My son will not go down there with you. His brother is dead, and he is the only one left. If harm comes to him on the journey you are taking, you will bring my gray head down to the grave in sorrow." Oh, the finality in his words, the refusal to risk another shattering loss. Can you see him? His face lined with pain, clutching Benjamin as if he could shield him from the world's cruelty. Yet the famine's grip tightened, as Genesis 43:1-2 reveals. Now the famine was still severe in the land. So when they had eaten all the grain they had brought from Egypt, their father said to them, "Go back and buy us a little more food." Hunger, relentless and cruel, forced Jacob's hand. Judah stepped forward, his voice steady, as Genesis 43:8-9 recounts. Judah said to Israel, his father, "Send the boy along with me, and we will go at once, so that we and you and our children may live and not die. I myself will guarantee his safety. You can hold me personally responsible for him. If I do not bring him back to you and set him here before you, I will bear the blame before you all my life." Oh, Judah's courage, his willingness to stake his life for Benjamin. Can you feel the shift? The spark of hope in his pledge? Jacob, his heart torn, relented, as Genesis 43:11-14 narrates. Then their father Israel said to them, "If it must be, then do this. Put some of the best products of the land in your bags and take them down to the man. As a gift, a little balm and a little honey, some spices and myrrh, some pistachio nuts and almonds. Take double the amount of silver with you, for you must return the silver that was put back into the mouths of your sacks. Perhaps it was a mistake. Take your brother also and go back to the man at once, and may God Almighty grant you mercy before the man, so that he will let your other brother and Benjamin come back with you. As for me, if I am bereaved, I am bereaved." Oh, the resignation in his prayer, the fragile hope laced with fear. Can you see him? His hands lifting in a trembling plea to God Almighty, entrusting his sons to divine mercy. The gifts, the double silver, were a desperate offering to appease the mysterious Lord of Egypt. How could Jacob release Benjamin, knowing it might cost him everything? The brothers' second journey to Egypt, described in Genesis 43:15-23, was fraught with tension. So the men took the gifts and doubled the amount of silver in Benjamin also. They hurried down to Egypt and presented themselves to Joseph. When Joseph saw Benjamin with them, he said to the steward of his house, "Take these men to my house, slaughter an animal and prepare a meal. They are to eat with me at noon." Oh, Joseph's heart must have leaped at the sight of Benjamin. his full brother and now a young man. Can you imagine the flood of memories? Rachel's smile, their childhood games threatening to break his composure. The brothers, fearing a trap, stammered explanations about the silver, but the steward's kindness disarmed them. Genesis 43:24-25 continues. The steward took the men into Joseph's house, gave them water to wash their feet, and provided fodder for their donkeys. They prepared their gifts for Joseph's arrival at noon because they had heard that they would eat there. A meal with the governor. How could they know they were steps away from a revelation that would shake their world? The meal narrated in Genesis 43:26-34 was a moment of awe and unease. When Joseph came home, they presented to him the gifts they had brought into the house, and they bowed down before him to the ground. He asked them how they were, and then he said, "How is your aged father you told me about? Is he still living?" They replied, "Your servant, our father, is still alive and well." And they bowed down again. Oh, Joseph's voice soft with longing as he asked about Jacob. Can you feel the ache in his chest? Hearing his father lived, yet unable to reveal himself. He seated them by age, astonishing them, and gave Benjamin 5 times the portion, a silent gesture of love. The brothers, unaware, ate and drank, their hearts lighter but still shadowed by Simeon's absence. How could Joseph hold back the truth? His heart yearning to embrace his family. This chapter of a Jacob's story, woven with famine, fear, and the faint hope of redemption, pulls us into a world where every choice ripples with consequence. The brothers' journey, Joseph's hidden tears, Jacob's anguished prayers. Oh, what a tapestry of human struggle and divine promise. What does this saga stir in your heart? Can you see God's hand orchestrating a reunion that will heal decades of pain? The famine may grip the land, but hope glimmers in Egypt, a spark that will soon ignite a miracle beyond imagining. Oh, the saga of Jacob and his family, woven with betrayal, redemption, and unyielding faith, stirs something deep in my core. It screams a truth I hold fiercely. Life's messiest moments, our flaws, our failures, are where transformation ignites. I'm struck by how Jacob's story mirrors our own chaotic journeys, where love and deceit collide, yet hope persists. My heart aches for the pain of favoritism, like Jacob's for Joseph, which fractured his family. It's a raw reminder that unequal love in families, whether for a child, a sibling, or a spouse, plants seeds of resentment that can erupt into devastating conflict. Why do we even unintentionally elevate one above another, ignoring the wounds it carves? I passionately believe we must strive for equity in our relationships, nurturing each person's worth to build harmony, not rivalry. Socially, I'm moved by the theme of reconciliation. Jacob and Esau's tearful embrace after years of hatred is a beacon of hope. In a world torn by division, political, cultural, personal, I'm convinced we need to chase forgiveness with relentless courage. Can't we see how grudges, like Esau's once murderous rage, poison us? I feel a fire in my soul urging us to bridge divides, to listen to, embrace even when it's messy or painful. Redemption isn't just a biblical promise. It's a call to action for our fractured society. Jacob's wrestling with God at Jabbok. Oh, that resonates. It fuels my belief that grappling with life's big questions, even when it leaves us limping, is what shapes us. I'm passionate about embracing doubt, struggle, and growth over complacency. Don't we all need to wrestle with our purpose, our faith, to emerge stronger? Rename like Israel. Lifestyle-wise, this pushes me to live authentically, not shying from hardship, but leaning into it, trusting that scars tell stories of divine encounters. Finally, Rachel's death and Joseph's loss break my heart, underscoring life's fragility. I feel fiercely that we must cherish every moment with those we love, for time is a thief. Let's live boldly, love deeply, and forgive quickly, because like Jacob, our trials can lead to a legacy of faith and hope that echoes beyond our years.